Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video. Today I've got a classic. Here is the Spyderco Endura. I've had this I think on camera a couple times, so you know it's been here, you know this review is coming up. And so what we're going to do to, switch things up just a little bit is I'm going to do a brief sort of overview of features and what I like and what I dislike. And then I'm going to finish off by doing a comparison between this knife and the Bird Cara. As you can see, they're very, very similar. This is, of course, essentially the budget option with lower end materials, even though in this case we've got G10 on this one and FRN on this one. But the blade steel is, of course, HCR13 MOV rather than VG10. And that's going to make a big difference, okay? Now, let's get back to the Endura, because this is a real classic. Been out since 1990, still in production, still doing well, and it's no wonder, frankly, that this is so popular. It's a very, very good folding knife, okay? It's light, it's big, you're getting a lot of capability and a lot of size in a very comfortable package. You know, it's not taking up a lot of space in your pocket, it's not a lot of weight on your belt or on your person. If you're not carrying it in a pocket, maybe you're carrying it, who knows, in a backpack or something. Anyway, so for a very small amount of size and a very small amount of weight, you're getting a very big, very capable knife. And that's really, really cool. Now, I will say it's primarily an EDC knife, and we'll talk about that as we get to lockup, okay? But size and weight on this, 8 3/4 inches overall, 3 3/4 inch blade, 5-inch handle, weighs in at only 3.7 ounces. So nice and lightweight. You barely know that you've got this in your pocket when you're carrying it, okay? And that stands out to me. As you guys know, I carry a lot of heavy knives. When I get a light knife, I'm like, hey, am I even carrying a knife today? But yes, of course, I've got the Endura. So still, even though I hardly notice it, I've got a big, capable blade with me. All right, and let's talk about that blade first. Now that we've got past size and weight, I'm gonna move a little quick because, as you know, I wanna get to talking about the comparison side. So what you've got here is 3 3/4 inches of VG10 blade steel. It is a full flat grind, which is super capable, okay? One of the things about full flat grind is it just does everything well. Spyderco does put a pretty steep angle on their edges, so this is a great slicer. It's going to do really awesome for food prep, and I've used it a lot for food prep, okay? It actually works better than some of my kitchen knives. It's that good. In addition, though, it'll also do all your EDC tasks. It'll open packages, it'll cut rope, it'll cut cardboard, it will, carve wood, make fire sticks, all kinds of things. So very, very functional blade shape, all right? Just does everything well. If there is a weak point, it would be the thinness. So this is not a super strong blade. You do not want to pry with this. Although, as I've said before, you don't really want to pry with any folding knife or any knife at all, because you can break the tip off, and of course that tip is kind of an integral part of the functioning of the blade. Very, very good blade, very, very good steel. VG10 is going to hold an edge very nicely, certainly much better than a lot of the budget steels that we're used to seeing. It's going to be comparable, I would say, to 14C28N, maybe a little better than that, comparable to 154CM. Not quite as good as S30V, but for the normal user, I don't know. For the normal user, you may not even notice the difference between some cheap gas station knife and M390. Some people are going to notice if they know about knives and if they use them a lot, they'll go, hey, this isn't holding an edge. But for most people, are going to take their knife out once a week, cut something and put it back. They're not going to notice. So VG10 is going to perform very, very well. It's a good quality steel. Now, let's move into lockup and deployment. This knife, of course, whoops, wow, there we go, is flickable. You can do the good old spider flick, very nice. However, because it's a lockback, it doesn't flick as smoothly and as quickly as other blades. A lockback puts pressure on the tang of the blade the whole time. So you can see I can stop this anywhere I want. It's not going to fall because this lock bar is pushing on the blade tang, okay? So it's not going to be as smooth as other knives, and that's just the nature of lockbacks. Not good, not bad, just how they function. All right, but it does lock up reliably. I will say this about this particular model is that it's very, very solid, no blade play at all. But initially, so right when you open the knife, when you go like this, a little bit of pressure on the blade and the lock settles, okay? The lock settles into the tang. And so there we go, I can do it over and over again. It'll happen pretty well every time with this model. Now that may go away over years of use, okay? But certainly for now, it just settles in a little bit the first time you use it. Again, if you didn't know to look for it, you would never notice, because if you opened this blade up and used it for something, now as soon as you put pressure on the blade, as soon as you go and cut something, that lock has settled in right away. There, you know what I mean? Now it's solid as a rock. So if you cut something and then said, hey, I wonder if there's any blade play, and you grab it, you go, oh no, there's no blade play at all. Even though that it just settled a little bit at the start. That's, by the way, probably a specific to this knife issue, okay? I'm not suggesting that all Enduras are going to do that, but I am suggesting that there are factory tolerances and you may get a little bit of difference. So this knife has that little sort of idiosyncrasy, and once the lock settles, then it's solid as can be. Otherwise, lockup and deployment are very good. Now this is not the strongest lock out there, but it does what it's supposed to do. And we need to have a little talk about this very quickly. What this lock does is keeps the knife from folding closed on your fingers when you're using it, okay? That's what it's meant for, and that's what it does. If you turn this knife upside down, stab it into a tree, and try to hang your body weight off it, you might wreck it, okay? Or it might close on you. But it's not meant to do that, okay? Leave that to cold steel to try and achieve those kinds of things. And so the lock is fine, but there are a few videos out there where people have broken and damaged their locks, and in fact made them so that they fail through hard use. Okay, so this is not meant to stand up to batoning or repeated spine whacking or all kinds of different things that we can do to damage a folding knife. That's not what any lock is designed for. They're just designed to keep the knife from folding on your fingers while you're using it. And of course this lock does that perfectly well. The handle is, of course, the bidirectional texturing FRN. Very, very good. And I cannot complain about that at all. Yes, G10 is grippy, and yes, it's comfortable, but over time, G10 wears, and although it still holds its grippiness, it does get smoother as time goes by. FRN doesn't seem to do that, and really, it performs very, very well. So you don't want to be sort of a snobbish person and say, hey, if it doesn't have G10, it's just no good. This knife is great. It's extremely grippy. You're not going to drop it or have any issues with it. And in fact, because of the larger size in the FRN spacing here, if your hands are wet or oily or something, it's going to drain away easier from this knife than it will. I know the comparison hasn't started yet, but this G10, because it's such a tight pattern, if you get mud or crap or sweat or oil or whatever else in here, it's going to kind of stick to that, and the texturing is going to lose a little bit. Because the spacing is larger, the difference in these is like really knobby tires versus really fine treaded tires. The knobby tires are better when you get into messy, sticky, gunky stuff, okay? And so there is a place for that open FRN pattern, and it's very, very functional. Very comfortable. Thumb ramp is excellent. Jimping is excellent. The lanyard hole, if you're into lanyards, is small. So you can maybe fit gutted paracord through there, but it would be a bit of a fight. You'd have to use one of the strands to pull it through, that kind of stuff that we've all seen before. It is Torx bit construction if you ever need to take it apart. And I've heard that it's bad. I haven't taken this knife apart. I've had no need to. But generally speaking, knives are not that bad. It's not like you've got a car inside of here or a computer motherboard or something. When you take this apart, there's going to be like 10,000 pieces doing who knows what. The reality is most folding knives are pretty simple in their operation, and most people, if you're careful and observant, would have no problem taking apart almost any folding knife and getting it back together. And if you think you're going to have an issue, take pictures as you go, okay? One last thing is the pocket clip, and this is the standard Spyderco clip we're all familiar with, and it works really, really well. It holds in pocket. As you know, I kind of like the Casey Lynch clips for my Spydercos, and this one will be getting one eventually, and I'll probably do a little quick video when that happens. All right, so let's move on now. I think we've kind of done an overview. Let's move on to the comparison. Oh yeah, one thing I should say, as overall use, this is a great everyday carry knife. It's going to really excel at virtually every EDC task, okay? There's nothing that you're going to need your knife for on a daily basis that this is not going to do really well. Now, let's do some comparison to the bird. There are a couple main things that I want to point out. We're not going to go into every detail of every aspect, okay? Main things we want to mention are difference in blade steel. Obviously, HCR 13 is not as good in terms of quality, edge retention, corrosion resistance, all those things as VG10. The VG10 is not going to rust as easily, it's going to hold an edge better, all that stuff, okay? Now, blade shape is almost exactly the same, but with the bird, you're losing just a little bit of cutting edge. It's 3.5 inches on this. I probably should have said that. 3.5 inches on the Endura. You lose that 1/4 of that. 1/4 inch is taken up here in the first part of the blade. On the bird Caracara, you lose a little bit to make that front finger choil. Okay. Now that finger choil is very nice. So it makes it just a little bit superior in terms of ergonomics to the Endura. Finger choil is really, really nice to have, okay? So, the bird has the finger choil, the Endura doesn't. Many have speculated that on the Endura 5, that is the next iteration of the Endura, you'll see that finger choil, and of course that's yet to be seen. The bird Caracara is a little heavier. Let me zoom out just a little so you can see the whole knife. I'll just sit over this way. There we go. The Caracara is a bit heavier, probably not quite an ounce heavier, but certainly noticeable. So this is 3.7 ounces. This is probably 4.5 ounces or so. Okay, the G10, of course, and the full liners not milled out are what's going to make that extra weight. By the way, you also have a metal back spacer here, which is adding weight compared to a plastic one. The handles are very, very close. The bird is just a little bit thinner, okay? Next, okay, so we've talked about the blade, we've talked about the blade steel. Oh, let's talk about the deployment hole, because this is kind of a complaint. I think the bird deployment holes are just really ugly, okay? Why not just make it a hole? Like, there's already a budget Spyderco line, right? So the Tenacious and the Resilience and all those, they're already budget-friendly blades. They have a spider hole. Why not just put a spider hole on the bird series and maybe call them, I don't know, something else? Or just leave them as bird, but just don't put this stupid weird shape on the blade. Okay, I'm not a big fan of this spider hole. Just make it a normal hole. Next thing is the handle. Now G10 is very comfortable, very grippy. Now this handle is a little thinner than this one, okay? So in terms of if you're doing a bunch of cutting, the Endura is, it gets back a little bit. Let's say this. So it loses a point for no finger choil, but it gains that point back for just general comfort in hand. The edges on the bird are a little more squared off. The handle is thinner, so although it's nicer to have that thin handle in pocket, the extra width on the FRN Endura handles make it more comfortable. All right, the lanyard hole is just slightly bigger on the Caracara. So if you're a big lanyard guy, you probably could get 550 cord through here. It would be a little bit of a fight, but you wouldn't have to gut it the way you would with this one. So that's nice. Otherwise, notice that the sort of cutouts along here are very, very similar. This front one is changed a bit to allow for this choil, which again, as I said, is a nice change. I'd actually like to see the Endura do that same thing, follow suit. Now, on the other hand, let's finish that thought. The thumb ramp on the Caracara is not nearly as good as the one on the Endura. The Endura is more abrupt, the jimping is better and really locks you in. The bird Caracara, it locks you in and it's fine, but it's not quite as strong as, well, not quite as just intuitive maybe, not quite as confidence inspiring as the Endura. Okay, let's see, what have we forgotten? The lockback is basically the same. The Endura, the bird Caracara is a little tighter, and you're not flicking this knife open at all. It's very, 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 very firm. That could be because it's the G10 version. By the way, I mentioned weight on this. This one is heavier, but this is the G10. So if I had an Endura G10, it may weigh a little more. Now the Endura G10 is milled out liner, so it wouldn't be as heavy, but it would be heavier than this, okay? Let's see. Anything else we need to mention? I think that's everything. So that's how these two compare. Last thing to say is about price. Here you're looking at like, under $30 for sure. I haven't looked recently, but I know I paid about $27, $28 for this. And of course, this guy, you're looking at $70 or so. And in Canada, that $70 is going to be more like $85 or something like that. Maybe, no, I think on Amazon, this is like 82 bucks free shipping, okay? And this is like 32 bucks free shipping. So that's Amazon.ca, not Amazon.com. You can reduce both of those prices for US viewers. All right, so that's how these compare. Both very, very capable. And if you want a good everyday carry blade on a budget, you cannot beat the Bird Caracara because even though, yes, you're sacrificing on the steel a little bit, for most people, you're not using your EDC blade in a way that's going to require great edge retention, and you're not going to get it wet that often. You may get it wet once in a while if you fall in water or something. How often does that happen? And then you'll know, holy cow, I got to dry all my stuff off. So it's not a big deal. Yes, if you leave this out overnight, you might get some rust. Where this, leave it out overnight. Maybe you're camping, maybe you were working outside with it and forgot it. You're not going to get any rust. So there is that difference to consider. Otherwise, though, in terms of functionality, they're very, very similar. Okay? There you go. That is my take on the Endura overall. A fantastic everyday carry knife. The Bird Caracara, a very good everyday carry knife. You're just sacrificing a little bit of material to get that lower price point. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I think both of these are great blades. Certainly this would go on my list of excellent budget blades, and this would be on my list of very, very good. If you said, what are your top whatever EDC blades, this would definitely make the list, as would a lot of Spydercos. Spydercos really excel for everyday carry. All right, so great knife. Hope you, I like the knife, and I hope you liked the video, and we'll talk to you later.